Hey, Noxy here. Did you know there was a point in time that making video games was such a bad idea that Atari, the king corporation for video games at the time, fell so far that it never could come back to its former glory? Well, it did happen. But before looking at the North America video game crash of '83, we need to look at the main reasons why this happened in the first place. Number 1. Too many outsourced games. Nowadays, if you want a game, all you have to do is match up the console to the label that corresponds. PlayStation to PlayStation, Xbox to Xbox, Nintendo to Nintendo. Yay! But back in the day, companies would produce cartridges, and if the card fit, you'd sell it. Activision, a company started from the employees that didn't get proper recognition at Atari, made video games for their consoles. That was the green light for other companies to cash in on this new craze. And if you don't think that's too bad, think about this. Purina dog food had a video game if you brought in the proof of purchase. You'd get Chase the Chuck Wagon. I'm going to just let that sit there for a bit so you can think about it. Number 2. Too many consoles and computers. Atari is kind of the biggest one to blame for this one. I mean, they made both computers and consoles. You have the Pong system, the Atari 2600, the Atari 5200, a bunch of computers, and for other companies, if you didn't have something that Atari could meet your needs with, you just make your own. There was too much of a market and too many competitors, and that made it harder for everyone. Not to mention, computers even in that time were superior to consoles, and Atari made both. In this day and age, we have that already happening, but that wasn't the best time to do that, especially when you're your own competitor. Number 3. And this is what I consider to be the biggest one on the list, poor quality video games. The two biggest contenders for this huge flop was Pac-Man and E.T. for the Atari. To give some context, 1980 is when Pac-Man hit arcades and won the world over by storm. Pac-Man has so much thought put into the game, from what we call pellets to the name of the ghosts, even turning the name of the main character into knockoff Japanese so people wouldn't graffiti the cabinets. I'd say that's probably a pretty good call, but Atari waltzed up and wanted a piece of that pack action and decided to make the game something you could play on your console. Imagine, something that you could only play in arcades, now in your living room. That sounds awesome! And it was so good they released a prototype to get it in our hands before Christmas? Well, let's see how good it looks! Can't you just feel the quality in this? Here's the original for comparison. Yeah, almost no effort was put into recreating it to look like the arcade version. Well, nothing could be more worse than that, right? Right? So fun! E.T. was the last straw that broke Atari's back. And again, right before Christmas. Almost every copy of the cartridge was sold back, and Atari had enough. They went into the New Mexico desert, took the nearest landfill, dumped the cartridges they had into it, steamrolled them, and covered them in cement. The Japanese called this the Atari Scare, and for 2 whole years, video games almost died out. Then the Nintendo Entertainment System came out and pumped life back into the video game market. It was such a dangerous move, though. They had to make it look like a VHS player and have super simple controls so people wouldn't be suspicious. Rob the Robot, the Orange Zapper, and a few other things that were attached with the Nintendo were a response to make it more fun and real-life relatable. This little box made it possible to play video games again, and that's why I'd say that this is probably my favorite console of all time, not only for what it started, but what a staple it became. Now next time I might take a look at the 2018 equivalent. Oh boy, this is going to be a dumpster fire.